What did Roman slaves really eat? We often picture lavish Roman banquets, but for the millions of people who lived and worked in bondage, daily life was far from extravagant. Their diet tells a powerful story about survival, social status, and the very foundation of the Roman economy. So let us peel back the layers of history and uncover the truth about the food that fueled the Roman Empire from the bottom up. First, let's get one thing straight. There was no single slave diet. A slave's meal depended entirely on their master's wealth, their job, and where they lived. A cherished tutor in a wealthy senator's home in Rome ate far better than a miner condemned to the silver mines in Spain. Urban slaves, like cooks or personal servants, often ate leftovers from their master's table, getting a taste of roasted meats, fine sauces, and imported delicacies. But for the vast majority, especially those toiling on large agricultural estates, the reality was much simpler and harsher. Their food was about one thing: fuel. It needed to be cheap, high in energy, and just enough to keep them working. The absolute cornerstone of the slave diet was grain, specifically wheat and barley. This was the ancient world's superfuel. Slaves were given a monthly grain allowance, known as a *frumentum*. The standard measure was about 4 *modi* per month for an adult male, which is roughly 35 kilograms. This sounds like a lot, but they had to make it last. From this grain, they would make the most basic food imaginable: bread or porridge. The bread they ate wasn't the fluffy loaf we know today. It was a coarse, dense, and often gritty bread called *ponis sordidus. Literally dirty bread. It was made from whole grain flour, sometimes mixed with cheaper grains like millet or even beans. Baking was a luxury, so many would have simply made a thick porridge or *pause* by boiling the crushed grains with water. It was bland, monotonous, but it was packed with carbohydrates, providing the raw energy needed for a day of hard physical labor. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a basic energy bar, eaten day in and day out. Beyond bread and porridge, the next most common food was the olive. Olives and olive oil were central to Mediterranean life. Slaves would receive a ration of olives, which were a great source of healthy fats and calories. They could be eaten, cured, or more commonly, the lower quality olive oil. What we might call pumice oil today was added to their food. It made their bland porridge more palatable and added crucial calories. This oil wasn't the extra virgin kind you drizzle on a salad. It was the last press of the olives, often bitter, but it was vital for survival. So, what about protein? Meat was a rare luxury. The vast agricultural estates were designed to produce cash crops like grain and wine, not to raise livestock for slaves. When slaves did get meat, it was usually cheap cuts of pork, like bacon or lard, which could be used to flavor their vegetable stews. More often, their protein came from plant-based sources. Legumes like lentils, chickpeas, and fava beans were incredibly important. They were cheap, could be stored for a long time, and when added to a porridge or a soup, they made the meal more substantial and nutritious. A simple lentil stew, seasoned with a bit of salt and maybe some herbs foraged from the fields, would have been a common evening meal. Vegetables also played a part, but again, it was all about what was cheap and readily available. Slaves would have eaten root vegetables like turnips and radishes, and leafy greens like cabbage and kale. Onions and garlic were staples, used as much for their strong flavor as for their nutritional value. They could transform a bland pot of boiled grains into something slightly more interesting. Many slaves working in the countryside might have had small garden plots where they could grow a few vegetables for themselves, a small but significant way to supplement their meager rations and have some control over their food. What did they drink? Water, of course, was the main beverage, but a significant part of their rations was cheap wine, known as *Laura, *POSTA, Laura, was made by soaking the leftover grape skins and seeds in water after the main wine pressing was done. It was a thin, sour, and very low alcohol drink, more like a slightly fermented grape water. Posca was even more common, especially for soldiers and laborers. It was a mix of sour wine or vinegar with water, often flavored with herbs. It sounds unappealing, but it was safer than drinking potentially contaminated water, and the acidity was actually quite refreshing in the heat. It was the Gatorade of the ancient world, rehydrating and providing a few extra calories. Did they ever get treats? Rarely. Sweetness came from fruits, but only when they were in season and abundant. Figs and dates were common sources of sugar and energy. Grapes, of course, were everywhere. During the harvest, slaves might be allowed to eat their fill. Honey was the primary sweetener in the ancient world, but it was a luxury product, far too expensive for a typical slave's ration. The diet was also heavily influenced by location. Slaves working near the coast might have had access to fish, especially cheap, salted fish like anchovies. Salt was a critical part of their ration, not just for flavor, but for preserving food and replenishing the salt lost through sweat during hard labor. Now, it's important to understand the psychology behind this diet. Providing just enough food to keep slaves productive was a calculated economic decision. Some Roman agricultural writers, like Cato the Elder, even wrote manuals detailing exactly how much food to give slaves to maximize work output while minimizing cost. He was notoriously strict, recommending that rations be cut when slaves were sick because they weren't working. This wasn't about cruelty for its own sake. It was about cold, hard economics. A slave was an investment, and their food was the fuel to make that investment pay off. However, food could also be used as a tool of control and reward. An overseer might grant a larger portion of wine or a piece of meat to reward good work or to create a hierarchy among the slaves. Conversely, withholding food was a common and effective form of punishment. The constant threat of hunger was a powerful motivator. This diet, while functional, often led to nutritional deficiencies. A diet so heavily reliant on grain could lack essential vitamins and minerals. Archaeological evidence from slave burial sites shows signs of malnutrition, anemia, and stunted growth. Their lives were physically demanding, and their diet, while providing calories, was often not enough to keep them truly healthy. So, when we imagine the life of a Roman slave, we should picture a diet defined by monotony. A breakfast, of course, porridge. A midday meal of bread, olives, and maybe a piece of cheese or some vegetables. An evening meal of lentil stew, washed down with sour wine. It was a diet of survival, designed for function over pleasure. It tells us a story not just about food, but about power economics, and the stark realities of life for the millions who were the backbone of the Roman world. Their simple, repetitive meals stand in stark contrast to the feasts we see in movies, reminding us that the glory of Rome was built on a foundation of grain, olives, and the sweat of the enslaved. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the daily life of ancient Romans, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what other aspects of Roman life you'd like to explore next.